Thank you for staying tuned to this episode of News Make Alive with Laura. And you know, one of the things I really enjoy about this job is that it's so dynamic. You just never know what's going to happen from moment to moment. Before the break, I mentioned to you that we were supposed to have a guest, and I was quite prepared to introduce you to our guest. But our guest has been caught up at another meeting, and so she's not with us today. By now, some of you may have guessed who my guest would have been, and she would have been Mrs. Sarah Flood Bobre. But as you would expect, this being the crunch time to convention of the United Workers' Party, she's still out there meeting with delegates, and you know, some people have actually asked for her to meet with them. And so, you know, if you're vying to be the political leader of a party, and if you're vying to be the leader of people, when they call you, I guess you must attend to their needs. And so Mrs. Flood Bobre is not with me at the moment, but hopefully she will be with us a little bit later. So what we can do in this instance is maybe flip the script a little bit and open the lines so we can engage in a conversation or discourse as to some of what I discussed in my preamble. And maybe you can now give us some ideas as to how we can help erase the scourge of rape from the landscape of our country. You know, it is something that is something that everybody touches the lives of everybody, not just the women who have been raped, but the families. You know, in effect, when a woman has been raped, she's killed. Her life is no longer the same. She will never be the same person that she was prior to the rape. Her dreams and aspirations have all changed. She will never be the same person, and her dreams and aspirations won't ever be the same. Most times you find that they're a shell of their former selves, that they're constantly looking over their shoulders to wonder, when next is it going to happen to me? We have our first call online. Thank you for calling News Make Alive with Laura. You're on the air.
Hi, Laura. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm fine, thanks. Well, as fine as I can be. Thank you.
You look beautiful tonight.
Thank you so much.
I felt guilty today.
Guilty?
As a man, yes, I feel guilty. Because I think as a St. Lucian, as a young man, whenever crimes, against women like that happen, you know, it's one of us.
Yes.
And I cannot remove myself from the equation.
I understand.
You know, I feel guilty. And, you know, I want to put myself in a place from next week, from tomorrow. You know, every time I see a young man looking sad or looking lost, you know, my aim would be to talk to them and find out what is wrong, to try and bring them back. Because I think too many of our young or middle-aged men are gone. You know, I go to work every day. I jump on a bus and I see the bus, filled with women going to work, going to school, and I ask myself, where are we? I went to a meeting this afternoon in the south of the country, just to plan an activity for children, and there were only just two guys, just myself and another guy in the room, and the room was filled with women. I asked myself, what is wrong with our men? And I want us to stop this thing about blaming people. We have to blame our disconnection with God. We have to blame our disconnection with family. We make kids right now to be macho, to say that we are men, so we have a kid. But are we being fathers?
That's right.
Are we molding our children? And I think we really need to look inward, look at ourselves, stop pointing a finger at everybody. And I'm also tired of mothers who come on the television or on the news every time something happened to a kid. My child was good and my child was perfect. Yes. I was very proud of the young lady last week when they shot this guy, and I feel sorry, my sympathies to the family. But I was happy, not happy, but satisfied that one woman, a cousin, came out and said, you know what? He was a bad boy. And maybe she shouldn't have said that, that it was okay that it happened to him. But
ever so often we get those rare moments of honesty from the family members, where
Yes,
they say,
we do. We do.
you know, and maybe it's not often enough. But we have to stop and take note. And I remember the incident that you're talking about where she said, you know what, she's happy he's gone. And I can well understand her angst, because from day to day you just never know what these people are going to be doing, what kind of trouble they're going to get themselves into, what kind of danger they put their own families into. Because when you do something like that, when you commit a crime, you know, there's always going to be some sort of retaliation. And if I cannot get you, the mentality is, I'm going to get somebody who's close to you.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know,
and let me just end by, because you may have other callers, you know, by just saying, I just want to encourage all men, our priests, our cadet leaders, our scout leaders, our teachers, all the male upstanding people, our politicians, the lawyers, the magistrates, all of us put together, managers, some of us who have benefited from traveling and are now somewhere in a privileged position in St. Lucia and in the Caribbean. We need to grab hold of a boy and speak to them. I did it this afternoon. I found one boy just walking around. You know, his hair was not properly combed. He was wearing an earring. I'm not stigmatizing him, but I called him and I said, "Hey, everything all right?" You know, and I actually had him sit on my lap. You know, a secondary school student, but and we had a nice chat, and he felt good, I felt good. I think we need to reconnect, be our brothers' keepers.
We have to care. We have to care.
We have to do it. And the pointing finger at our politicians or at our system, no. We are supposed to be the ministers of justice in our homes. We're supposed to be the ministers of health in our homes. That's where it starts. Let's not depend on any.
That's where it starts, But when we cannot finish it, we need help, and that's why we've put structures in place for this. But before you go, will you be attending the march with Raise Your Voices on November 25th? We need as many men as possible attending that march.
Because I'm not. Where is it happening?
From Serenity Park. It starts at Serenity Park and it ends at the Derek Walcott Square.
I'll be there. Count me in.
Wonderful. Because we need as many men as possible to come out and to let themselves be seen and say, hey, I do not support the rape culture. I denounce it.
Well, I
can understand. I can understand.
Anyway,
Wonderful.
thank you for your call. Thanks for the nice work that you do when you bring out those little stories for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And this is what we're talking about, you know, and it's unfortunate that he feels guilty and he has not done anything. I wonder at night when these people who commit these acts, when they go to bed, if they feel guilty. If they, sometimes as a human being, you go to bed and you think about your day. Do they think about the day that they've had? We have another call online. Thank you for calling Newsmaker Live with Laura. You're on the air.
Hi, Laura.
Hi. Good night. I'm fine. Thanks. How are you?
Okay, Laura. I am a little bit numb. I think that's the best word that I could come up with to describe the feeling that I have. Because whenever I hear rape or I hear some kind of assault against a woman, it only brings up, a lot of issues and a lot of memories, if I should say. But, when I listened to the news, I read this story today of a 97-year-old, Laura. I'm speaking to you now and goosebumps on my skin because I cannot understand the mind of somebody who would rape anybody, far less a 97-year-old. And I was reading an argument and it got me upset. It got me upset when a man suggested that it's because of how women are dressed.
I wonder how that granny was dressed.
That is what I'm saying.
I wonder, honestly. I wonder. And she's beyond a grandmother, Because I would imagine at 97, you would have been a great-grandmother, as well. So I'm really wondering how she must have been dressed. And that's one of the first things that crossed my mind.
No, that is just an excuse. And
of course it is.
Explain. And I'm saying this is an excuse that you're trying to use. Because you cannot tell me, what about a 2-year-old baby? What about a 5-year-old child? How is this child dressed so much that you're going to, some kind of act of violence? And then wants to tell me about carnival. I said, excuse me.
Oh boy.
I said, excuse me. I said, I am a woman. You have children, and this is how you're going to speak about it. Instead of saying, this is not going to work. And yes, I agree with stiffer penalties. But you know what, Laura? There's an issue that I really want to bring up on your show. And I hear you speaking about rape all the time, and I know you're passionate about it. This thing about the wangement, Laura, you know about this thing? It exists.
You have no idea how that pains me, and you have no idea how it pains me and angers me when I hear people talk about that. But worse yet, when they have it emblazoned on their vehicles, wajma, you know, and you wonder what the wajma was for.
You know, and I Laura, it is something where I question, or it only says one thing, that you encourage the behavior. You encourage that behavior. To me, this is what it is.
Exactly.
Because you have parents who a crime has been formed against their children, something, probably a rape crime or some sexual assault, whatever, even if they steal a bicycle, Laura, whatever it is, they go out, they take money, and they come to a conclusion, and they think that that is it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, Dr. Pep sung a song a couple years ago. I'm not, well, you should know that because we grew up with it, the victim's story.
Yes.
And I come up with that song all the time.
Yes.
And you know, when we talk about, and I'm happy that the discussion, and I hope it's very soon, the issue about the pepper sprays, Laura, and so on, because you know what is going to happen. People do not, the police, they do not want the law, people taking the law into their own hands.
Yes.
But then, things like that, it may very well be a case where people start to take the law into their own hands against somebody, because I cannot tell you my reaction if I come home one day and somebody's trying to do something to me. I cannot tell you my reaction. I might do something, I don't know. I pray to God every day that, you know, it doesn't come to a point where I have to do something that I will regret.
And you know, it gets to the point where in my circles, the women are actually plotting and planning, what am I going to do? What will I do? Because in their minds, if they plan, they have a plan. You know how you have an evacuation plan?
Yes.
Then if they have a plan, then maybe they can, and they go over it often enough, that maybe it can, if heaven forbid it should ever happen to them, then that can kick in, and that they can do, and oftentimes that plan involves violence. And that's just what it is. If we do not get a handle on this, pretty soon we will have anarchy in this country. We will have people so paranoid that before anything, they will be quick to pick up a knife or a gun or something.
It's like, Laura, it's like living in a flood-prone community, and every little rain you see, you get scared.
Yeah,
and this is the kind of...
Yeah, or you're living out of a suitcase, because you never know when you're just going to have to pack up and leave.
This is what it is. But, you know, it comes back to, Laura, before I because I know other people are trying to call. Before I leave, I think, too, that the family dynamics have broken down a little bit too much.
Oh, a little bit?
Also,
that's a euphemistic way of putting it.
Yes. I think that the days of a community
raising children,
child, things like that need to be brought back. You see the thing about it, I know you grew up, because I don't think that we're very young people, but then we grew up in a time where if I brought home a pencil, my mother would ask me, where did I find it?
And bring it back if she hadn't bought it.
I was saying earlier that my mom, I remember when I won a spelling bee competition and I got this prize of notebooks and so on. My mother brought it back to the school to make sure that it was the teacher who gave it to me.
At least you had that. I remember one time coming home with an eraser that a friend had given to me. And my mom made me bring it back because She didn't know whether the mother of that other student had given her permission to give that, and I had to return the eraser. So these are some of the things, we have to take some more calls. So I really appreciate the call.
But these are
But
things that we need to
yes,
take a serious look at. Thank you,
certainly,
Laura.
you're welcome. Thank you for calling. You know, and these are some of the dynamics that we have to look at. Maybe we need to go back to basics. We have another call online. Thank you for calling Newsmaker Live with Laura. You're on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good evening, sir.
Hey, good evening, Laura, and good evening to your listeners. Laura, I'm listening to your program, and I'm very often somewhat emotional when it pertains to these matters.
I'm sorry, you're a little distorted for some reason. If you could start again, I didn't get.
I'm saying that tonight I am trying to be composed about the subject.
Yes.
And listening to your first caller in particular, I was impressed, I must say. And I want to take it a step further. I think that when we're talking about rape in this country, we have to change our angle, our perspective. We focus on the women, the victims, but how often have we done that? It always remains for a fleeting moment, and we move on to the next victim. That is also becoming a culture. I think what we have to do, that is in my humble opinion and how I see things, is that we have to focus on the men. We have to focus on the perpetrators of these crimes.
But how do we focus on the perpetrators of the crime when, one, most times they're not caught, we don't know who they are. Two, when we do know who they are, there's the wajma, which my second caller spoke about. And three, when we do know who they are, and when there is no wajma, there is prominent members of society that everybody seems to be afraid of touching.
Excuse me, Laura. Sorry, may I?
Sure.
May I for a moment? You're making my point for me. You just made my point for me. We have knowledge of it. You name prominent figures in the society. The fact that you're speaking of it, and you're speaking of it on television, means that it is a public knowledge. So why aren't we talking about that?
You see, because at the end at the end of the day, we can have the discussion. We can have hold on. We can have the discussion. We can have the discussion, and we can talk about it. But at the end of the day, hold on. We're having a conversation. Let me just respond to this point. But at the end of the day, if a charge has not been brought, even though somebody may have spoken about it, say for instance, I was raped by Joe Blow, who is a prominent member of society, and I have reported the case. But then there is so much pressure put to bear on my family and myself. I've been threatened that I am unwilling now to go to court, and I now withdraw my accusation or whatever. And this person, though we know that this person committed an act, cannot be charged because there are no witnesses. Can we now continue to make mention of that person without fear of ourselves being victimized and being brought to bear by the same law that is supposed to protect us from that person? Then that law now tells me that I've done something wrong with that, because that person has not been charged, and I keep saying that this person has committed a crime when that person has never been charged with a crime.
Yes.
So it's a vicious cycle.
And I agree with you. However, the point that you're making is not a new one. Of our judicial system is not a new one. And that's my point. So can we seek ways beyond that of having this discussion and focusing on the perpetrators?
Well, we will have to do...
The mere fact that you can talk... Hello?
Yes, I'm listening.
The mere fact that you can bring up the point that there are well-known individuals, high-ranking individuals who are known, that means it's a public secret. So why don't we change the language? Why don't we change the angle? We focus on the victim, but history has proven that, hey, the victim is just a fleeting moment, and we move on to the next victim.
But we should never, and we lost this call, but we should never forget the victims. I don't ever want us to forget the victims, because some of these victims have are not around, they're not alive to tell the tale. This will be our last call before we go on break, because I think my guests may be around. But we'll take this call and then we'll go to break. Thank you for calling Newsmaker Live with Laura. You're on the air.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
First of all, I would like to just express support to the families of these 3 young girls who had to undergo this horrific and traumatic experience.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't know what I would do if I was in that situation. But I have been listening to the callers, and one of the suggestions that came to mind is that why don't the government put in some more money in security? Because we're relying on tourism. If these things were to be happening to tourists, bad publicity for St. Lucia.
Mm-hmm.
Putting in the money, meaning hiring more police officers to patrol, staging undercover operations. We know the areas where rape is rampant or it happens frequently.
You see, but yeah, so, but you know, now I was beginning to figure we had an angle, you know. We thought, okay, it was happening in the north, but now it's like a virus. It has spread now. I mean, it's gone down as far as Monrepo, and we cannot. There's no trend. We thought, okay, they're targeting young women, 16-year-olds, and young ladies. But now we're hearing of a 97-year-old great grandmother who has now been raped. So I agree with you. We have to put funding, more funding, in place to set up things that we could use, like for instance, analysis. We could find out investigations. I mean, sometimes I wonder about the investigations that are being undertaken.
Yeah, because
we don't have a crime lab. Even when we have the DNA, we don't have a registry in which to place it, to say, okay, we have these fingerprints and we have this DNA, and if we come across it again, okay, we know it has been in the system before. Maybe that person is known to the police or whatever. We don't have any of that. We have a crime lab that's sitting there, apparently fully furnished and but not operational. So yeah, we have the things that we have, we cannot use. So it begs a question: if we put more monies into it, will we get the results that we're looking for?
Well, the thing is, we have to start somewhere.
We do, actually.
So if we put in the money, yes, we don't have a database now, but we have to start somewhere. So even if we start now, the persons that are caught, they're fingerprinted, etc., and then we start a database from now, we have to start somewhere. And usually these are repeat offenders.
Well, that is what I'm saying.
You catch them through an undercover operation. Young police officers who are not known go undercover, living in an apartment, you know, similar situations.
Right.
And it's like you're luring these predators. You go to the beach at Redview or wherever that they're raping, while you have other officers watching, and you have these young officers, female officers bathing and so on, to lure these predators, and then you get them off. Also,
but you see, the thing is, we kind of have to know what we're looking for, because we might put the decoys out there, but the areas that we put in the decoys is not the areas that they're prowling, you know.
Right. That is a difficulty, but how do you get around that? How do you know? We will never know where exactly.
Well, we have to have the intelligence.
So
yeah, it has to start somewhere, but we must have. I think where it starts is with the intelligence. We must have the intelligence, and we must have those things like you said, the database and the crime lab. They have to be operational. It's no use having something and we cannot use it. You know.
I agree.
Certainly.
I agree.
But thank you so.
We need to start somewhere, and I think what you're doing is good. I hope the relevant authorities are listening, taking notes, and actually not just coming on TV and making nice face and saying that we have to do something, but actually doing something.
I thank you so much for your call. Appreciate it very much. And this will be our last call before our break. We will take a break now, and when we come back, either we have our guest or we continue with the conversation. See you at the other side of the break.